Good day, everyone. I'm Mike Bowers. I'm the director of the Ohio Small Business Development Center at Columbus State Community College, and I want to welcome you to this month's edition of Small Business Breakthroughs. This program we put together in an effort to bring together business experts and entrepreneurs to kind of share some of their thoughts on what it takes to start, build, grow a small business. And we are excited today to have our guest, Renée Tyack, who's the Vice President at Capital Plus, a division of United Capital Funding. And I've known Renée for a number of years, and we're excited about the opportunity today. As always, I want to start and welcome Chaz Frutel. Chaz is the director of the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center, who we do this program in partnership with. And Chaz and I are both at the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center today. So Chaz, welcome. And if you want to share a little bit about the center, I appreciate it.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Mike. And it's a pleasure to have everybody joining us today. Excited to hear this guest speaker that we've got, and always good to hear about opportunities for funding. The Dublin Entrepreneurial Center was founded in 2009. It was the first entrepreneur center in Central Ohio, and we've been serving hundreds, now thousands of businesses that come through the deck every year. We host over 150 businesses on site that have offices or hotspots or things 24-hour access to the facility. And in a Class A building in Dublin, a study was done about 5 years ago, and we're the least expensive entrepreneur center in the entire United States in Dublin, Ohio. So we're excited about that. Also, to our knowledge, we're still one of the largest entrepreneur centers in the United States. So anybody that's on with us today or watches the recording, if you're interested in coming in and getting help with your business, as Mike said, he's here at the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center today as well. So we love to help people right on site, but also providing space to be able to just drop in and do some work. Meeting rooms, free Wi-Fi, everything is all inclusive and still a very affordable rate for you to be here. So always excited. Plus, in September, we're going to be running a special. We actually have a good number of offices that are available. We have over 100 offices that we actually have available on site. And I've got about 15 that are available right now. And so we're going to be doing a half off for 6 months, a half off of our office price for that period of time. And so anybody that might be interested, just reach out to us and I'll put my information in the chat. But Mike, back to you, because I'm excited to hear this presentation today.
Great. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. As Chaz says, I mean, the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center, it's a great opportunity for those of you who really are looking to grow a business. Whether you are looking for space or you're looking for connections and networking, the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center is a great resource for you. So I encourage you to reach out to Chaz and check out the website and some of the other things that are happening here. And I think it'll be of value to you. So I really think that this is something that you ought to take a look at if you have a need. With that, we're going to go ahead and get started. A couple of things, housekeeping to start with. Number one, we appreciate everybody who's joining us live today. What we'll do is, if you have questions, feel free to put those in the chat. Bruce Walters and I will be here covering that. And also, the Small Business Breakthrough is recorded, and it will be on our YouTube channel. If you go search Ohio SBDC and look for the Ohio SBDC at Columbus State Community College, that will be up on our YouTube channel probably within a couple of days. And I do want to be remiss if I didn't mention, we also have a program we do which features entrepreneurs. So the Entrepreneur Spotlight, Bruce Walters is over that program. Bruce, do you want to talk about our next guest?
Our next guest, yes, I'd be happy to. And that's going to be Sonia with Angry Dad's Beef Jerky. So an interesting business that started when Sonia's husband started making jerky at home and really was having a difficult time ever getting to sample what he made because their kids would eat it before they could get to it. So it was so popular, it turned into their own jerky business. And they have a facility, excuse me, here in rural Ohio that they've had completely outfitted, and they have a USDA representative who visits them periodically so that they can produce their products. So really exciting business. This is in a series, as Mike said, that we do every month. We take an opportunity to meet with a small business owner and get kind of the inside scoop on what it means to start and run a small business. So you can get some industry insight depending on what kind of business you're looking to start or you've already started, or just some overall good guidance about what it means to be an entrepreneur. So if you're interested in that program, that will be available on our calendar of events. And if you don't have that link, I'll drop it into chat for you right now.
Great. Thanks a lot, Bruce. Yeah, that's a great program because it features these entrepreneurs, small business owners. Many of them were where you are right now, not too long ago. And now they've really started to make a move. So we're happy about that. And I encourage you to check that one out because that's going to be really interesting. And let's go and get started. Renée Tyack, as I mentioned, the vice president at Capital Plus. It's a division of United Capital Funding. As I said, I've known Renee for a number of years. I want to say that we met before you were at Key Bank. I remember when you were at Key Bank, but I'm trying to think. I think we met then, and that might have been through some connection with your father or something of that nature. But thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I have listened to some past events. I really love the Q&A format, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Great, thanks. So, Renee, if you want to kind of share a little bit, I mentioned the Key Bank part, but go ahead and share a little bit about your background and some of the things you bring as it relates to small business owners and experience, and some of your passions around serving some different groups.
Sure. Well, I'll start with the most prominent role I've had, which has been here at Capital Plus. My father founded Capital Plus in '92 when he had retired from Emerson. He is a military guy, which I mentioned because that's how I was raised. That's how we ran the business. It's prevalent in the way I raise my own kids today. But at Capital Plus, we focused on providing strategic working capital for small businesses who wouldn't qualify or couldn't qualify for traditional finance. So it was, I say strategic capital because it was unlike anything else in the market in 1992. You could find factoring firms and you could find small business lenders who were high risk, high rate lenders, or you could go the traditional route. And there was really nothing in between that provided both service and capital. So my father started the business, as I said, in '92, and I was just fortunate that he hired some powerhouse women to begin with who still work in our business, and we kind of all grew up in the business together. So I'm very fortunate there. However, my personal background in and out of Capital Plus, right? I've done everything from answer phones and sort mail to successfully sell and transition the business. How even I entered the data and handled the invoices and did the collection calls. I'll be real honest that the collection calls were my least favorite part of the process. But anyway, my background spans everything. I've got a liberal arts degree from Denison University. I did everything in the hotel industry, from clean rooms to design the portal to sell in unused hotel rooms online. Now, in that business, I worked directly for a small business. So I really learned the ins and the outs of a small business, and the fact that even though your title may say one thing, if you have to clean the hotel rooms that day, that's what you man up and do, right? So that was where I got my start. But this access to capital and how to fund a growing small business has really been prevalent through my whole career. And so I feel very fortunate to continue that commitment under United Capital. So that's sort of an overview of me.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So let's kind of jump in. You mentioned, working in a small business, but when your father started Capital Plus, I mean, that's an entrepreneurial venture too. So it wasn't like he was starting a division of Huntington or something. I mean, he was, really a small business, and like you said, you got to do a lot of everything to be able to figure out and understand those types of things. So let's start out just kind of at the bigger level, and we'll kind of dig down a little bit. What are some of your experiences and some things that you would recommend or you have seen that would be valuable, or things that you've seen have been challenging for folks that are in that kind of early stage of a small business? Maybe they've started, but they're 6, 8, 10 months in, and still grinding away. What are your thoughts on those businesses and what they should be doing to outgrow?
Everyone talks about cash flow, right? If you don't have cash flow, that's the killer for the business.
Yeah.
But the cash flow problems are a symptom, right? You have an opportunity and you have commitment already, right? The business owner and their team are committed to the success. So if you identify that you have a cash flow problem, I really think you've got to have the peer group, you've got to have the advisors, and you've got to have the resources to address that problem. That problem can come from a number of things: slow paying customers, poor projections, right? So you've got to have, so when I see a rapid growth or emerging business, my first question is, who's on your management team and who are your advisors? Because problems always come up, right? That's the nature of the beast. And if you have the right people in play and the right advisors, you can address those challenges. So I would say advisors and peer groups.
Yeah, so let's talk about advisors for a second. So if you're in business, kind of a solopreneur, maybe you got 1 or 2 people or something like that, what recommendations would you give them in terms of actually developing an advisor? Maybe it's not an advisor board, or maybe initially it's not a board, but getting some folks on that you can bounce some things off of that will give you good advice. It may not be the advice you want to hear, but it's advice, like you said, to help you overcome some things.
Well, I know in my experience, I needed advice from a variety of sources, not just one. And we work with a lot of small businesses, and I always send them to the SBDC for a number of reasons. One, if somebody says, I don't understand my financials, or they demonstrate to me that they don't understand their financial plan, or they don't understand how to prepare the business plan, right? I still talk about business plans because I see that as a roadmap, right? I see that as so essential to guiding the success of the business. And it also forces you to really look at who's on the team, right? What strengths and weaknesses are rounded out by that team. So I always refer people to the SBDC. I'm not just saying that, I really do, that. But then also it depends on the business itself, right? There are veteran business owner groups, there are women business owner groups, there are startup business owner groups. You can do a meetup anytime. There are accelerators, the deck. What you need is a community of people who are solving similar problems. So I think Columbus is very fortunate that we have such a robust startup community with so many wonderful resources like the deck and the SBDC right here. And our SBA group, they're awesome too.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that. I think that Central Ohio is very blessed to have this great entrepreneurial community. And, the economy is kind of slowing down now, or it's doing some different things, got inflation and whatever. And I know that there's some areas that are having more problems in Columbus. And, you and I have been around here working in the entrepreneurial space for a long time. And in the 20 some years that I've been doing it here, I've seen ups and downs in the 2008 recession and things like that. And certainly that had, impact on a lot of businesses, but I don't know. I think that we were a little bit insulated here as opposed to some areas. So when we talk about, looking at your business, we talked about, cash flow and that being potentially emblematic of some other problems and different things like that. When you're at the early stage of your business, what is your experience in terms of, really looking at the day-to-day operation of the business? Because I think especially early on, you can get overwhelmed. And I think that you can get in a situation where, you're looking out and, I've got to find sales, or I've got to do this, or I've got products I've got to deliver and all that kind of stuff. And, different areas of the business kind of breaks down or doesn't get the kind of attention that it needs to get. And that is a great time to have advisors, because you can sit down with them and they can say, tell me what's going on here. And maybe you haven't saw it, but kind of what are your thoughts in terms of this the really early stage and trying to stay focused? What's some advice you might have there?
Yeah, I think it's really important to set goals that are clear and distinct, right? And understand what your real objectives are. If your objective is to scale rapidly, well, then your key performance indicators, your measurements that you're going to track are different than the business that says, I just want to do 200,000 this year. I just want to grow at a slow, sustainable rate. Those are, so you really have to identify, what do I want? What do I need in order to get there? And am I willing to sacrifice what it's going to take for me to get there? Because there will be sacrifices along the way, right? So for me, I would start with those questions, but it really does have to start with, what do I really want today? Understanding that a year from now, once you accomplish that, it will likely change, right? Because now you've accomplished that milestone. What's the next milestone? And then you compound from there.
Yeah, I think the goals and the plan, that's huge, because you've got to build the goals, because that gives you, okay, this is what I'm after. But you got to have the plan, because without the plan, you can't execute on the goals. And I see a lot of folks that they may have a plan, looks really nice, and it's sitting up on the shelf or something like that. But you've got to have something that you can work and that you can deal with to help you build and grow the business. And when to kind of pivot a little bit here, when we talk about funding, having a plan is critical, because you've got to be able to communicate what it is you're doing, and the plan allows you to do that.
Oh, I feel so passionately about the need for the plan. For one, as you say, because it allows you to communicate to your lender or your investor, right? It allows you to communicate the need, but it really allows you to extrapolate beyond that, because the borrower oftentimes has an immediate need, and then they go and seek capital for that immediate need. Well, if you go seek the capital for that immediate need 6-12 months down the road, that same source of capital may not help you then. So you have to be able to project out, looking at your plan. If I accomplish this milestone, what am I going to be at? Where am I going to, what am I going to need at that phase? And will these providers still be able to address my need, or will they be flexible and help me as I graduate into the next phase of the business? So the plan is so essential to communicate where you're at, what you need, and where you're headed. And to say it so simply like that seems obvious, but a lot of times we'll see businesses go secure financing the traditional route, walk into your bank and I was a banker. There's a lot of value there. I place huge value in the relationship with not just one, but multiple bankers, because they can give you so much insight and access to resources. However, there are times where, especially when you're a small business, you may walk in and ask for something specific, and that banker's going to give you specifically what you needed. But if you ask for, let's say, a $50,000 line of credit, and then the bank gives you that $50,000 line of credit when that addresses your immediate need, but 12 months down the road, you need 150. Well, the bank has now leaned your assets. You've borrowed up to 49,000. You have no additional access to working capital. And while that $50,000 line of credit provided a Band-Aid, you really have a bigger opportunity to scale, and you need more liquidity. So the plan allows you to say, okay, this $50,000 gets me here. I know that I'm going to use it, but then I need to adjust and have a plan for this next 150. So it's about the plan and being proactive.
Yeah, absolutely. And the liquidity issue, I've seen a number of businesses that have had great markets. They've had people wanted to buy, and they've gone out of business because they can't keep up. They don't have the funds to do that, and they're growing so fast. I remember back in probably, it was in the early 2000s, and Business First, I don't know if they still do, but they had this Fast 50 program, 50 fastest growing revenue companies in Central Ohio. And inevitably, every year, somebody in the top 5 was out of business the next year, and because they just outgrew, they went so fast that they couldn't keep up, and they ended up having to go out of business when they were doing that. So the value of liquidity is important, and I think that is a nice segue. I'm going to get into some other pieces. That's kind of a nice segue to talk about Capital Plus and some of the things you've done. So let's say that you get there, you go to traditional route, and you get your funding and different things like that, but then the growth starts to outpace it. You have invoices, you got all kinds of stuff. Something like Capital Plus could be something really good to step in and help you with those liquidity shortages.
Yeah, I think small business, oftentimes we're so focused on our expertise that we don't step back and plan for, we don't understand where the money is going to come from in order to fund our growth, right? So as a small business owner, you really have to look at, my gosh, here I go again with the plan, but you have to look at your balance sheet and say, okay, based on the plan and where I want to go, what assets are available to help me get there, right? That's a big portion of the plan. And we do this in our own lives every day, but when it comes to business, your plan, you want to get there, you've got the opportunity, then you look at the assets, right? What assets do I have that are going to help me get there? And a lot of times the largest asset for a small business is the accounts receivable. Now, one of the biggest challenges for a small business is you go out, you're so pumped, you just won this deal, and they say, I'm going to pay you in 30 days. And you're so pumped because you just landed the deal, but then you find out that they're really going to pay you in 45 or 60, which is one of the reasons we provide this credit portion of our business, where our clients can screen their customers, and we'll say, okay, we're glad you're going after this business. Before you go secure and negotiate the contract, we've run the background credit history on that business, and we can tell you that they're going to pay you in 45. So factor that into your budget, right? Know that when you go negotiate, they're going to be a stress on your cash flow. So we educate our client with that information as they go out into the market to earn new business, right? So they are actively managing their cash flow by knowing that the new business they bring on is either going to pay them in 10, 15, 30, 45. Some pay very quickly by ACH, some drag it out 90, 120 days. It's important to know that. The second thing with invoices is, again, oftentimes the largest asset on the balance sheet for small business is somebody's got to collect that. And the best way to collect an invoice is on the front end. So we have a collection specialist who, for our clients, and I don't mean to make this a Capital Plus commercial, I think all of our clients and small businesses should do this on their own or hire someone to do it. But once the invoice goes out, a lot of times the person who generated that invoice and sends it via email doesn't want to make the follow-up call. But it's about relationships still in business. Even when there's a portal, we've got clients who use portals with Pfizer, GE, Chrysler. We still have someone call and say, hey, we just want to make sure that, or even if they don't have to call, you can look in the portal, make sure that invoice posted, no numbers were transposed, the supporting documentation was provided. So it is about invoice management. And then when you make the call, when an invoice is past due, it's not the first time you've talked to them, right? So collections are incredibly important, and it needs to be a proactive collections effort, not a reactive effort, because that impacts your cash flow, which impacts your profit margin, which impacts your turnover, your DSO, everything. If you don't have liquidity, you can't scale. So that collections portion is incredibly important. So know who you're doing business with. Make sure that you extend credit to those who will pay you and know how it's going to impact your cash flow. 2, manage that collections proactively. And then 3, if you go to a traditional lender like a bank for a line of credit, they look at your historical financials to determine what business can repay. And that makes a lot of sense. However, if you're a small business that just started, or you're a rapid growth company, if you look at the historical financials, that's not going to give you the working capital that you need to float these invoices that are coming, right? You've got business, you need to scale. Historical debt service coverage isn't going to get you there. So that's where you can strategically leverage invoices and receivables for working capital. Now, it's on the borrower to find a good provider, because we have a lot of access to capital is plentiful right now, even in a challenging economic market. You can crowdfund, there's access to capital is plentiful. So it is on the borrower to source reputable providers, because just like my business, there are bad providers out there, and you can become a victim of a bad provider. So it is important to work with a reputable company who provides services and will design a mutually beneficial program with lots of flexibility as the business continues to grow. So that's just one example of the capital providers that are out there. There's PO finance, there's all equipment finance, inventory finance, there's a whole host of ways you can look at your balance sheet, identify the assets, and how best to leverage them for the growth strategically. Sorry, that was a really long answer. I'm sorry.
No, those are great points, because I think a lot of times people, especially entrepreneurs, this isn't what they do. I mean, they're in it to do the business, right? So, they may have their financials down, they may have their plan down, they may be doing everything, but they don't really understand the kind of the funding continuum, what's there, when it's there for you. And that's where it becomes important to, again, whether it has an advisor, whether you're working with us at the SBDC, or, whoever it is that, can give you a view different than I think that you have on a daily basis, and can give, help you look and say, okay, yeah, this may work better than just going and trying to get a traditional loan or something like that. Because and I'll give you an example. You mentioned, historicals and stuff like that. We have a couple of clients we're working with that one of our business advisors, Ellen Harvey, has done really great work with them in terms of building out future projections and all of this kind of stuff, and very doable work with what they're doing. But turned out that the funding source that they were going through, they weren't even taking that into account. So this business had opportunities, but because they were going to a specific funding source, they weren't able to actually get the funding from them that they needed, because they weren't going to look at the futures as much as they're going to look at the historicals.
Yeah, and you can really find a lender to provide capital for anything right now. I really believe that. And it's a very competitive market from a lender's perspective. So the borrower can really advocate for themselves. But it is very difficult, which is why I go back to the plan and advisors. And advisors take a form of a number of different shapes, right? Working with the SBDC is, in my mind, essential because they help you build that plan, right? They help you understand those numbers. But then also a peer group is an incredible asset. When we were doing our succession planning at Capital Plus and navigating due diligence and investment bankers and what are we going to do with the business, it was my peer group that I attribute our success to. And I'm very proud of our exit to United Capital Funding because the culture was a wonderful match. Their vision and commitment to the clients were aligned with ours. The trust level was already there, but it took years to build that. And it was very stressful. And if I didn't have my peer group, I would not have been able to negotiate the way that I did, or even have the fortitude to make it through the whole process. Business with your dad is great till you're, in a moment of, stress. So I think there's a lot of value to the peer group from an advisor perspective because you learn from their experiences, their relationships, their resources. You don't have to have 50 lunches, right, with different bankers or different advisors. You understand your numbers. You lean on your trusted advisors, make sure they're all smarter than you, right? All more accomplished than you, right? So you can really leverage their experience. Because I'm very proud of our exit, and I attribute a lot of that success to my peer group and how they helped me navigate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's huge and it can't be emphasized enough. Let me kind of shift along the what I say the funding continuum.
Sure.
So, you've got background and experience on the equity side too.
Mm-hmm.
So you're the managing director of Golden Seeds. So
Yeah.
I'll talk a little bit about that, and give folks here a little bit of understanding from your perspective when you do start talking about investors and equity. I mean, we've done a lot of stuff on this program over time in terms of prepping for the debt side and prepping your business and prepping the financials and doing all those types of things. We've had some really smart people on here that have talked about that, but we haven't spent a lot of time on the equity side. So I'll kind of throw it to you, and you can kind of say, how you want to start that conversation and where we want to go from there.
Sure. Well, my father was involved in the Ohio Tech Angel Fund.
Right.
And I was simply by way of the company of Capital Plus. And I would attend some of these Ohio Tech Angel Fund meetings just in awe of the opportunity. I thought the people in the room were just astounding, so brilliant. The presenter, in fact, John Houston, one of the founders, I remember just writing down all of his questions because I thought the questions were something I could really take away and learn from. And he was questioning the presenters, right? This was way before Shark Tank ever became a thing. So at the Business Technology Center, Mike, remember when you used to host those Q&As? Gosh,
yeah,
like 20 years ago. But anyway, so I had a real appreciation for the opportunity from an investor perspective, not just for the return, but to really change lives from the entrepreneur's perspective to the market, right? We saw technology that could really transform surgeries, for example, or today we see a lot of green tech. So there's a great podcast. It's called The Angel Next Door by the ACA, the Angel Capital Association. And I love the way they open the podcast. It says something along the lines of, don't just be the change you want to see in the world, invest in the change you want to see in the world. And one of the things I love about angel investing is since 2016 with the Jobs Act, there were some changes to regulation, and that really opened the door for crowdfunding. So prior to 2016, you really had to be an accredited investor, and you do have to be an accredited investor to be in a group like Golden Seeds. However, the Jobs Act really changed the platform, and now everyday people can engage in being and investing in the change they want to see in the world. And there are platforms that have come to market that allow you to look and say, hey, I know I want to season my lawn, or one of the great companies they highlight on that Angel Next Door podcast is pit moss, which is a new type of soil, peat moss, that is more economically friendly, environmentally friendly, not economically, but environmentally friendly. So all kinds of green benefits. So if you're a planter, for example, you can go onto some of these crowdfunding platforms, find peat moss, not only invest in the company, but also then use it in your garden. I think that is incredible. So what I love about where we stand today in this market is incredible opportunity to discover new technologies, new disruptive companies, but then also bring people who wouldn't necessarily understand this asset class into the asset class, and it can transform lives. So it's really exciting to be in this space. And Golden Seeds, I found, because I don't think the Ohio Tech Angel Fund has new rounds at this point, but Golden Seeds was started, I think, in 2005 by a group of women who were really committed to bridging the gap, because there was a small percentage of angel. First of all, there were very few female entrepreneurs who, let me find the numbers here. Oh, here we are. In 2004, women entrepreneurs represented only 30% of total entrepreneurs in the country. And of the angel capital that they received was only 3% of the investments. So today, fast forward to 2020, now it's 30-30. 30% of the investors are women, but also 30% of angel funded companies are women-led entities. So we're sort of bridging the gap there. And then also the thing I love about Golden Seeds is there's a commitment to access to capital. And we recognize that it's not just gender, it's also color, right? And so there is a real commitment to democratizing this access to capital. And I'm very passionate about it, and I love being a part of it. So that tells you a little bit about Golden Seeds. Again, a really long answer. I'm sorry, Mike.
No, you're fine. You're fine. The, you mentioned a couple of things. So the Ohio Tech Angel Fund is a fund that was actually started, spearheaded by the Columbus Venture Network, which I oversaw back in the early 2000s. And we basically found individual investors to come in, pull some money, and have a fund. And then from there, they had multiple rounds and things of that nature. But it was really for that early stage. But prior to that, with the Columbus Venture Network, and then obviously with the Ohio Tech Angel Fund, we did get to do the Shark Tank thing. And it was always entertaining, because what we would do is that we would have have an entrepreneur come out. We had an investor panel. This was open to the public so they could see. And like I said, it was before Mark Cuban was doing all his things. And we would do that, and they would come up and do their pitch. I think it was like 10 minutes, and we would kind of coach them. But then the investors would ask questions and different things of that nature. And that was really good. It was really entertaining. If you were looking to do this. Now, the entertaining part, which, I saw and you guys didn't see, is when we coached the ones that didn't make the pitch opportunity, because they came in with some interesting ideas, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think
I
we
have
had,
to tell you, I think about that a lot. I remember just sitting in the audience, writing down the questions of the investors. It really, it shaped a lot of how I look at deals even today, whether, I mean, it probably shaped some of the answers I've given. It was very, very valuable.
yeah, it was. Now, that is also why I've never watched Shark Tank. So
Yeah.
I've actually never watched it, but yeah, no, that was interesting. And it's an interesting opportunity for folks that were thinking about doing something down the road, could sit there and like you said, hear the questions, and they could go up and talk to John Houston, they could go talk to Dave Brownstein, they could go talk to these folks, and get their thoughts on how this would work, and they've had multiple rounds. It's now I believe tied in pretty heavily with Rev 1, which is great. Golden Seeds is a great opportunity also. What would you recommend? And maybe this is again some of the criteria that you all look at Golden Seeds, but if I'm an entrepreneur, I believe I have something that will scale. What do you want them to bring to a conversation with you?
Well, when we look, when I'm looking at an opportunity, because I would screen, any potential entrepreneur, I really look first at, what is the problem you're solving? And I want it explained to me like you would explain it at a cookout, right? I need it simplified, because if it's too complex, it's going to be difficult to get to market, right? And even the most complex topics can be simplified. There is a problem and there is a solution, right? And how are you solving that problem? And that gives me an idea of the market. But understanding the opportunity, then I go back to who's on the team, right? Because that market is going to change. Inevitably, it will change. It will evolve. And can the management team, do they have the experience to navigate those changes? And do they have the experience to scale this business? Because in this angel world, we're looking to scale the business, right? So we want to know how big is the market and how rapidly can it scale? But the first question is really after you understand the opportunity, who's on the team and can they execute, right?
Yeah,
Those are my first two questions.
Well, the team is huge. I mean, what's the adage? You can have a B team, or a B team with an A opportunity is going to get beat by or vice versa. But I mean, the strongest team can take a weaker opportunity,
yes,
and go much better than the other. And when we're thinking about equity also, I mean, it's important. The reason these things have to scale is, to your point, investors are not looking for you to pay them back. You go to a bank, they're looking to get paid back with a relatively small interest charge compared to a potential investor. But as an equity side, you've got to be able to scale, because they're looking for you to obviously get the money back, but primarily they're looking at these opportunities because they're looking at the potential reward. I mean, the payback.
Yeah, and I've seen a big push with the investing towards also impact, right? Now I say impact, meaning again, to that be the change, invest in the change you want to see in the world, right? There are a lot of, now that the doors have opened up for equity investing, right? The doors have opened up. People have said, okay, not only am I a consumer, but I'm an investor, and I want to invest where I want to see change. So, and ultimately, if you get enough people on that same route, then you also see the return. But I think you're also seeing people are more comfortable with delayed returns, because they want to see that longevity, that sustainability in the marketplace as well. So
Yeah, and I think your point about your market, about what the opportunity is and what the future opportunity is really important. One of my favorite businesses that came in that we had talked to, so he was giving his pitch at our kind of screening. He's giving his pitch and he was running his numbers, and one of the investors, and keep in mind, if you're actually speaking directly to investors, most of them are pretty smart on the financial side. So he's sitting there doing calculations on this. And so in the question part, he's like, okay, so based on your numbers, within a couple of years, you will have served everyone in the world based on the numbers you put out there. So where is your growth opportunity? So we assume that he was going to be looking at other worlds.
Oh, gosh.
Do that. And needless to say, he didn't make the cut. So
Yeah.
But
you should have had a better plan, right? That would be easy.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think it's important to really have an understanding of what that looks like, where you're going and what you're trying to do. I want to, it's amazing how fast this hour goes. So I want to take just a couple of minutes. I want to talk to you about, you and I have talked about some work that you are doing and want to continue to expand, working with veterans, as you mentioned, women, people of color, different things like that. I mean, talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be expanding into this space. So we toyed with it over the years, but government contracting is very specialized. So it can be very rewarding for the entrepreneur, for the business owner, to expand into government contracting. From a lender's perspective, it's difficult to finance because of this. You have to really understand all the nitty-gritty of the paperwork and the process behind it. And if you mess it up, then that can impact the collectability, right? The payout down the road, and cause difficulty for the borrower as well as the lender. And banks don't really like it because a lot of times the government will pay in extended terms. They do pay, but perhaps in extended terms. So I am passionate about this because my father is a veteran. I have uncles. I mean, everybody in my family, aside from myself and some of the women in our family, we haven't served. I do have, nope, no women in the family have served, but a lot of the men in my family, my dad's uncles, my cousins, all branches of the military, Marines, Navy, no Air Force, but Army. But anyway, I'm very passionate about, well, I'm very grateful for their service. And if I can do anything to help a veteran who has started their own business be more successful, I'm thrilled to play that role. And then on top of that, United Capital Funding has specialized in government contract finance. So we were able to lean on their expertise and move slowly into this market, because I only wanted to really enter the market once I really understood how we solve the problem. And so the federal government is the largest purchaser of goods and services in the world. And if you think about it, they are obligated to purchase from small business. There is a huge opportunity for small business there. And so it takes time, it takes relationships, and it takes a lot of hard work to earn that business. But once you do, it can be very rewarding. Now, one of the challenges as businesses enter that space is, how do they cash flow it? Because perhaps they have commercial business, so they are already B2B, and they want to expand into this B2G space. Well, the government may say, great, we've got this, you've earned your first award, and it may have taken you 2 years to earn that award, right? It's right. Not easy work, but once you've earned it, they now say, great, we're going to pay you in 30 days. And you're like, oh, now how am I going to pay for that? Because this is new work, right? You've got established business, but now you're scaling in a new direction. And the bank's going to say, well, your historicals don't really warrant that additional line of credit. So you've got to find a way to finance that new growth. Well, you can write the contract and work with your procurement officer to execute the assignment of claims, and work with a lender like myself who can come in and say, okay, you've got the contract, we'll put through the paperwork, the assignment of claims. And as you grow, you now can leverage those invoices to the government for working capital. Again, it has to be with a good provider. They have to know what they're doing. Otherwise, it can trip everybody up. But it's a fantastic way to expand into a stable client, right? It's the federal government, and create growth in a stable market there. So I love the opportunity. We have seen some clients go from 0 to 12 million in a year, right? That's incredible growth. We've also seen very good clients who've been stable for a long time just complement their B2B business with some B2G to provide some stability in uncertain economic times. So I really love this space because of the people I get to serve. And I really enjoy working with a lot of these veterans, but then also I feel like there is a real distinct need that we're solving by working with these people and providing the working capital. So I really love that space.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've had some of these folks on here before. So here in Central Ohio, we have a Minority Business Assistance Center, which does work helping people get certified, minority businesses. And then the veteran certification has moved from the VA to the SBA. So there are individuals at the SBA office here in town that that's their job to focus on that. And obviously there are women business certifications that there are organizations, we can assist, MBAC can assist. And then there's also the what we call the Apex Accelerator. That used to be the PTAC for those of you who've been around for a while, but they do work with getting individuals connected with those government opportunities. And it's like you said, I mean, if you try to do this on your own, yeah, I can give you the link and here's the database and here's what's available. But if you're not used to doing it, you're not going to get the award. So that's where a lot of this kind of support and everything I just mentioned is free of charge to the entrepreneur. So there's a lot of resources that are out there to help individuals who want to do that. And if they have a product, they have an opportunity that would fit to providing it to the government. Yeah, you might have, a little bit, pay slow here, there, but they do pay and they pay a lot potentially.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's a good opportunity to think about.
And all of those resources you mentioned, the Apex or PTAC, the Minority Business MBAC, I forget what right? I mean, it's all free resources to help you secure this business. It's incredible. I really think that, again, it goes to your advisors, right? Who do you surround yourself with? There's a whole suite of advisors who are experienced in that space, and it's free. It's incredible.
Absolutely. So we got a few minutes, and I've got 2 questions for you. So I usually have 1. I have 2 today because my first question is that what would you recommend? I mean, we have a number of people on there, so we have a number of people who'll check out the YouTube channel. They're small business owners, probably in that earlier stage. What's like one piece of advice you might give an entrepreneur, something that they should do like between now and maybe the end of the week or over the weekend or something, just to kind of, get their business, kind of ramped up a little bit?
Yeah, I'd say look hard at who's in your peer group, because a confidential peer group, you can work on challenges in your business. I really feel like that's essential. Yeah,
absolutely. And so the other question is it's for you. So I know your father. So
sounds like I'm in trouble.
What's a piece of business advice? I'm sure there's been a lot of personal advice. What's a piece of business advice that your father has either given to you, you've heard him give to other people that you think would be important for us?
Oh gosh, he is 100%. You got to have a plan and you got to manage to that plan, right?
Yeah.
you give me one of these, right? Or the
Yeah.
finger.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, hey, Renee, it's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed the opportunity to speak with you here. Everybody, go check out your website. What's the URL for that?
It's capplus.com for until the end of this calendar year when we're transitioning to United Capital Funding's website. But for now, you can still find us at capplus.com, capplus.com.
Okay, great. So go check that out. A lot of great information there. And Renee, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you, Mike.
So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Reminder that this will be posted on our YouTube channel. If you go look and search Ohio SBDC and look for the Ohio Small Business Development Center at Columbus State Community College, you'll be able to see this and all of the previous episodes. Don't forget about our small business entrepreneur spotlight, which Bruce mentioned earlier, that you can reference and find on our website. And we want to thank everybody who's joined us today. Thank the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center, Chaz Frutel, for all of the work that he does to support the small business ecosystem here and the work that the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center does. So thank you all. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you next month on Small Business Breakthroughs. Thank you.